Welcome, 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 folks. We're back here for another edition of Meet Your Selectmen and candidates running for Board of Selectmen. I am Dave Alcox. I will be moderating today. And tonight we have 4 people running in March for 2 open seats for Board of Selectmen. The current incumbents, Paul Dargy and Gary Daniels, are with us, and our 2 candidates, Tina Philbrick and Scott Kimball, are with us as well. To give a quick little overview of the ground rules, I am going to have Mr. Daniels and Mr. Dargy identify what the role of a selectman is. I will have the candidates introduce themselves, and then I will pepper them with a number of questions over the course of the next hour. And at the end of that hour, I will have closing statements by the candidates, and we've all pledged to be delightful, respectful, enjoyable, and any other able you can add on to that to let you get a good idea of who our candidates are, why they're running, what their platforms are, and what strategies they would like to implement if they were to be elected as a selectman of our community. Real quickly, March 12th from 6 to 8 p.m. is voting day here in Milford at the high school. We have the longest hours in the state, 6 in the morning till 8 o'clock at night. Please vote. We'll be voting on the town budget at that point, as well as school board candidates. The school board forum is going to be next Wednesday at this same time, and it'll be moderated by Mr. Steve Martin. And then again, like we said, on March 12th will be voting day. So please enjoy as we kick back and meet our candidates. So to meet our candidates, we're going to be running for selectmen. Let's identify what actually is a selectman and what do they do. And Mr. Dargy, Mr. Daniels, as incumbents, if you'd like to tell the community that the answer to that question, that would be wonderful.
Okay. In Milford, there's 5 selectmen. Each have 3-year terms, and it's a rotating basis. So one year there's 2 people, next year there's 2, and the third year there's 1. So this is a 2-year year. The selectmen have 2 meetings a month, the second and the fourth Monday. That's the regular thing. And then selectmen also typically is on a committee. We each kind of take turns being on the different committees. And so you serve on the committees or work with the committees, and you bring the information back to the board. The main thing we do is we hire the town administrator, and then town administrator hires all the other people in town. So we have like 1 employee, basically. One of our main functions is developing the budget in the fall. So that's a very involved process, working with the Budget Advisory Committee and the town to develop the budget. And
just to add that the Board of Selectmen is the executive board for the town, overseeing the operations of the town. As pointed out by Mr. Dargy, our employee, if you will, is a town administrator who handles the day-to-day operations. So we represent the people. I mean, years ago when this all started out, people would get together at a town meeting and they would decide how things run. But as towns grew, they started electing selectmen, and you find them mainly in New England, not so much in the rest of the country. But we represent the people's voice. So our major job is listening.
Okay, and a couple quick follow-up questions. Mr. Dargy, you said that you have to be part of committees. Can you give examples of some of the committees that the selectmen are part of?
I'm personally on the Heritage Commission, Conservation Commission.
So basically committees that are functioning in our town,
Yeah,
not
so-
committees within Board of Selectmen, but committees that actually run the
Right, yeah.
town. Okay,
The Planning Board, the Zoning Board, Recreation Commission, and
fantastic.
there's a bunch of them.
Okay, and Mr. Daniels, you said that you're responsible for budgeting. Roughly, what's the town budget looking like for March?
We actually did a great job this year, and I give it all kind of credit to the town administrator and the department heads, because the first budget that was presented to the board was a double-digit increase, and we have brought that down to 4.6%. there's time. When we do budgeting, I mean, I look at it in different ways. Number one, is the function that we're talking about a role of government? Secondly, do we have the means to give what the departments what they need to be able to perform that function? Thirdly, it's an evaluation process to make sure that whatever's going on is actually working and that we're not just wasting money. Secondly, fourth is prioritization on things. And the fifth, you may have to eliminate some or put them off till later because you need to find that balance between what the town needs and what the taxpayers can afford to pay.
And so roughly monetarily wise, are we around 15 and a half, 16 and a half million, 17?
17.
I think around 17.
Is it around 17? Okay, I'm just trying to think of like last couple budgets. Okay, perfect. So around $17 million. School budget's probably still around the 40 some odd million dollars, if you would,
48, yeah.
48 million. So basically in March, on March 12th, people who are watching, you're voting on roughly $65 million worth of taxes that are going to be,
Plus warrant articles.
and plus warrant articles.
Which are-
So, for you, almost 10,000 registered voters, this is a really good opportunity for you to get out. Government closest to the people are the ones that will affect you the most. And in this case, close to $65 million worth. And that's 65 million reasons why you should go out to vote. So let's do some introductions if we can, and I'll start with Ms. Philbrick at the end.
Tina Philbrick, 111 Cortlandt Road. I currently work for the town of Milford until next Thursday when I retire. Just you do the opening statement.
And what position was that?
I'm executive assistant to the town administrator and the Board of Selectmen. So I'm running because Milford faces a lot of challenges with limited resources. But with good leadership, thoughtful planning, realistic budgeting, and public input, we can meet these challenges. Milford ranks about midway throughout Hillsborough County as far as taxes. We have unused property that the taxpayers bought and to be utilized for future town needs and industrial and commercial growth. We need to start marketing that. I'm not saying that we haven't been marketing it. I'm just thinking we need to work a little bit harder to market that, to bring additional business into Milford to help offset our tax rate. We need a solid infrastructure. There's no substitute for a well-maintained system of roads and public services. The current board has been excellent the past couple of years focusing on the roads, and we just need to make sure that we continue to make that a priority. Working in the towns, I've seen what works and what doesn't, and common sense combined with careful study of problems can result in solutions that work. I've been rooted in the community for 27 years, and I'm here for the long haul, and I'd like to make a difference.
Fantastic, thank you. Mr. Dargy.
Hi, I'm Paul Dargy. I'm a candidate for re-election to the Board of Selectmen this year. For the past 25 years, I've been heavily involved in a variety of civic activities within Milford. I've enjoyed being a contributing member of the community, and I'd like to continue that record of service by being re-elected to the board. My elected positions include 15 years on the school board, 2 years as a state representative, and most recently 6 years as a selectman. I've served on many different committees over the years, so I have a good solid understanding of the issues that are typically seen. For example, last year I served on the Heritage Commission, the Conservation Commission, the Milford Energy Advisory Committee, and the ATC MHS Steering Committee. I'm also active in other groups such as Boy Scout Troop 407 and the Milford Lions Club. I don't have a personal agenda that I'm trying to promote. I'm just interested in making the best possible decisions for the town while considering the needs of all community members. It's always a struggle to try to keep the tax rate as low as possible, while also trying to provide the best town experience possible. I'm not one to just say no to everything, and I'm willing to advocate for spending if it makes overall sense. I generally advocate for minimizing the total lifespan cost of purchases and not just focus on minimizing the current year expenditures. An example is infrastructure spending for items such as roads. I've advocated for years for us to increase our road maintenance expenses, since that will result in lower total cost over a long-term horizon. Milford is developing a new long-range master plan over the next couple of years, and I view this as an opportunity for us to set up a roadmap of what we want to do to bring us to the future. I hope to contribute to this effort. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Daniels.
Yeah, thank you. Good evening. My name is Gary Daniels, and I'm running for re-election to the Board of Selectmen. Milford has been my hometown for over 50 years. I graduated from Milford High, was educated in higher education in New Hampshire Technical Institute and New Hampshire College. I hold a bachelor degree in Management Information Systems. I'm also a military veteran, having served 3 years actively with the U.S. Army, 3 years with the New Hampshire Army National Guard, and 6 years with the U.S. Army Reserve. Politically, I'm completing my 21st year on the Board of Selectmen. I've served 6 years on the Milford School Board and 6 years as your school district moderator. At the state level, I was elected to the House of Representatives for 18 years, serving all of those years on the Labor Committee, and was elected also to the State Senate for 6 years, where I served 2 terms as a Senate Finance Chair, while also serving on Capital Budget and Ways and Means. If re-elected to the board, I would bring extensive, well-rounded leadership and legislative experience, and a solid 33-year record of honesty, integrity, and commitment in public service that would be beneficial to the board as it faces the challenges over the next few years.
Thank you very much. Mr. Kimball.
Yes, thank you. My name is Scott Kimball. I'm 61 years old. I'm a husband and father and 4th generation Milford resident. I went to school here in Milford in class of 1980, but I graduated from Eagle High School in Hopkinsville, Kentucky. I left Milford at barely 17 years old to serve in the regular Army for 3 years as a combat engineer with the 101st Airborne. I later go on to serve in Milford's Army National Guard Field Artillery Unit as their Fire Direct Center. My daughter Casey also went through K-12 here. She graduated in 2013 and went on to receive her bachelor's degree at Keene State College, graduating early in 2017. She's now finishing her master's degree at UNH, and I'm untold proud of her. My father was born here on Olive Street, along with 2 of my uncles born on Sauhegan Street. My father and mother still live in the same home I was raised in with my 2 brothers, Kevin and Fred, and my sister Valerie. Their home is in the Hilton Homes project, where I suspect they are the last of the original families who took part in this housing and urban development program for low-income families in 1969. My mother retired after working 23 years for the Milford Town Assessor. I'm a retired 32-year UPS driver, which gives me a sort of experience I don't think many on this board has. I got to go to everybody's home, rich or poor, farms, factories, and over repeated engagements with them, they became not just your customers, but your friends. And I saw families lose their homes to foreclosure and saw the smiles and faces of the other family who took over the house. So it's a personal business. It isn't just delivering packages. It's not an oil truck delivery job. Now, I've been to numerous committee meetings, boards of selectmen meetings, and participated in many of them. And I don't have the length of time and experience within Milford's government or the Board of Selectmen as the other candidates do. But I think that gives me a different type of perspective, a fresh perspective, looking at it like a new eyes. And I see a lot of things Milford could do better. And I think Milford can do better and should do better. And there's a few policies I have in mind to do small tweaks on to sort of become more fair, more inclusive, and bring more equity and better at governing. And that's really my reason why I'm running for selectman. I just think, there's things we can do better. And, we're one of the poorest towns now in the 13 communities of the southern, the National Regional Housing District. And in their assessment is really shocking if you read it through the eyes of an economist or somebody looking at socioeconomic demographics. If you read it the way the report reads it, it's a great read. It's a big brochure about the need for housing. But when you read the statistics that 43% of Milford households are renters, and we're gonna be approaching 50%. Every one of these renters, every one of these rental units really are negative tax units. And those taxes that they're not paying for their own services and their school children have to be paid by homeowners. So, we have 3 boxes in our tax bill. We have one for the county, one for the school, and one for the town. I really think there should be another one, the cost shifting that goes on to homeowners. Now, how did we get to here? How did we get to be one of the poorest towns in southern, in the 13 communities? I mean, what do their planning boards know in these other communities that ours doesn't? Because they're not there. They only have 5 or 10% rental units. And if I was a single mother or single father or a parent with 2 children, and I had a chance to go rent in Hollis, where their school is rated 3 times greater than Milford's, I'd do that. But they can't, because there's no apartments there, because they only have 5% ratio to housing. So I think it's we're in a situation where we have disproportionate growth. Either we're wrong and they're right, or they're wrong and we're right. And I gotta see, for me, and as a long-term plan, that ratio come back to a sort of equity between these other towns. And until we get there, I don't think we should approve any more rental units. So it isn't just my looking at the world, looking at the town through fresh eyes, but reading things in a different way. And that's it.
Okay, thank you very much. Well, I'm going to start with Mr. Dargy. All 4 of you have commented on your lengthy living here in town, so you've all got a huge amount of what I would call institutional knowledge. So with that institutional knowledge, what's your vision then for the town over these next few years? If you're on the Board of Selectmen, what would your vision be for this town, knowing what you know about our town?
Well, it's actually kind of complicated, but we've set up this whole group to develop a new master plan for the town. It's going to be a very elaborate process. We've hired a company to manage the thing. There's going to be lots of public input into the process. It's going to take a year and a half, maybe 2 years to finish. And they'll be working towards looking at things. And so, example, what amount of rental housing do we need to have? That'll be probably a major focus, because housing is a major issue in New Hampshire in general. And so that'll all be worked out. I'm not as concerned about rental housing as Mr. Kimball is. It's actually not a negative tax thing. There's a common misconception that rental housing is sucks up taxes, but the reality is that there's very few students that live in rental housing, relatively speaking, compared to single-family housing. So it's the number of students in the school system is the driving factor on taxes, and it's just not that many in rental housing.
Okay. And so you're talking about this new master plan that's coming out.
Yeah.
I'm sure you're familiar with that as well, Mr. Daniels?
Not so much.
Okay.
So
Is there some examples maybe of what this master plan, you talked about some of the rental issues, but are there some other examples of what this master plan is going to try to encompass?
It's going to look at on a variety of different things. There's different modules in a master plan. There's a recreation, there's emergency
Keys field
services,
issues.
housing, infrastructure, all the different topics.
Okay.
They haven't actually started yet, so it's in its infancy.
Okay.
So it's going to be happening.
And what would you like to see? Obviously this master plan's coming in, but what would you like to see in terms of your own personal vision of what you would like to have implemented here in Milford?
There's a lot of trade-offs, and I'm not sure I'd pick one or above another. One thing is walkability of the town. I mean, that's going to be a topic. What kind of sidewalks do we want? Do we want to have sidewalks? I've been an advocate for sidewalks for a while. We had an opportunity to implement some sidewalks a few years ago with 80% state funding, and I advocated for it, but other selectmen didn't advocate for it, and we ended up not approving that. But I think improving our sidewalks is a good thing, but that's you know, that's a subset of the overall thing, but that'd be a topic.
But it's something important to you.
Yeah.
Okay, Mr. Daniels.
Yeah, just to add to that, you know, I'd say most of the work is done by the planning board on the master plan, as opposed to the Board of Selectmen. I mean, we'll have input and such like that, but it's true, this is multifaceted thing. To answer your question on vision, I think I'll put it in the form of questions, because I think there's multiple things that we need to look at. I mean, as Milford grows, how do we maintain those aspects of the town that led us to make Milford to our hometown? That's different things to different people on there. It may be the social aspect on one, it may be a rural aspect on another. How can we control growth in a way that preserves individual rights and freedoms? That's something that's always coming up when you're passing zoning laws or the planning of things, even in the master plans. I mean, years ago we came up with 2-acre zoning. I mean, there seems to have all sorts of exceptions to it, grandfathered things, so you don't need 2 acres anymore, things like that. But there's a lot in the policies that we do that are going to affect people's rights and their freedoms, and I think people want that freedom and the right. This is America, and they want to live the American dream. Mainly, how do we balance the cost of services provided with the ability of the taxpayers to support them? It's a big issue for us, and as I mentioned before, there's trade-offs. We have decided consciously as a board that we were going to make roads a priority. Actually, in this last budget, we made personnel a priority because we recognize without the personnel, the work is not going to get done. And then finally, in what ways can we bring property tax relief to taxpayers, and how do we initiate them? This requires thinking outside the box. We can't run with the status quo. We've done that for a while. I think the board has been lately thinking outside and coming up with ideas on the ways that we can accomplish things. Maybe merge things together, work with the school to cut costs. We had the energy committee that came in that is bringing in a program to help us lower our energy costs. So all those things kind of work together and make up the character of the town. And
Okay.
there's probably many more things too, but that at least is a.
But that gets the ball rolling for you, absolutely. Mr. Kimball, your vision.
Well, I vision a more prosperous town, first of all, and when you have nearly half your population, approaching half your population, making a median household income of $48,048, according to the National Regional Planning Commission's Housing Assessment 2023's report, that doesn't create a lot of economic multipliers. So, getting a better handle on the type of growth we do. I have no problems with renters, and I wore the calculated numbers off and doing calculations between an apartment building in Woodland Heights and measuring it against one in James Street, which are essentially the same type of building. One's condominiums, one renters. And I came up with a 34% less taxes being paid by Woodland Heights. I invite anybody to do the same thing. To verify my numbers, but that's what I got. And the older these apartment buildings get, the ratio even gets worse because of depreciation. Now the new one, these newer projects that have been built, they're closer to neutral rate, but eventually they'll begin like the apartments on Capron Road. If you do the same calculation between that apartment and James Street, which is condos, you come up with exactly the same number. So, and the other thing is, not only are we becoming one of the poorest towns, or maybe even the poorest town, measured in median family incomes, man, we're about to spend $30 million on a solution for a problem that doesn't exist, and that's the ATC building. We have an award-winning one right now, and it's the newest part of the high school. That's $30 million we don't get to pay for our roads, $30 million we don't pay for new pipes to tackle this brown water problem, $30 million for our bridges, and $30 million to do innovative projects that could actually produce positive revenue. And I'm speaking about mimicking what Keene did. where they built a YMCA and an ice skating rink. We're gonna spend almost $15 million over the next 20 years on a recreational department. We're halfway there to the cost. With fees, we could literally own that building outright in 20 years and be producing positive revenue, excuse me.
So your vision would be,
It's holistic.
okay,
Because, when I'm told that you can't do anything with the school budget, the selectmen have no power over that. I disagree with that. They have the power of persuasion. And as a strategic look at the town, $30 million comes out of one pocket. And that's the truth. So if we don't at least try to do something to balance this type of spending so that all the community gets something out of that money, then they get something back out of it. And when only 14% of the population of that school will ever empty that building and 86% don't, how fair is it to spend $30 million on 14% of the population of the school?
okay, and if I can follow up, obviously you're talking about a town budget and a school budget that are two separate budgets, and you're saying the
Coming out of
Board
one
of
pocket.
Selectmen, the Board of Selectmen should have a power of influence, is that what you're saying?
I should think if they think it's a wrong strategic move for the town, they should say something about it.
Okay.
All right, because it's all, whether it's school budget or the town budget, it's all coming out of one pocket. So,
But people can vote for the town budget and
Right.
deny the school budget, or
Right.
vice versa.
but it's in the central selectmen's interest to make a case that that money could be spent on better things.
Okay, perfect. Ms. Philbrick, in your opening statement, and to kind of follow along your institutional knowledge question, you talked about unused properties and so on. So would this be part of your vision down the road for that the selectmen could have influence on?
It would be. We, like I said, we have a property, the Brock's property, that can be used, and we can use it for growth. And we don't have to have huge growth. I mean, I've been here 27 years. When I first lived in Milford, we had 8,000 people. Now we have 16. So we've doubled in the 26 years. Coming from Nashua, this is still a small town feel. I like the small town feel. I don't want to overdevelop so that we are a Nashua, and I don't see that happening because we just don't have the property and the space for that. I don't feel that we have an apartment problem with the apartment rentals because the people that are renting those apartments bring in revenue to the town. They go to our supermarkets, they go to our restaurants, and they spend their money, and they're bringing revenue into the town, even though they may not be paying taxes. And inadvertently, they are paying taxes. They're paying for their apartments, and those apartment buildings are paying taxes. So I would like to see individual homeowners be allowed to do more with their property. If you have, and I think that's in the works. I'm not 100% sure. I'm not fully involved with zoning, but you have a 5-acre property and you want to put a small house on it. That would help with the housing. You could maybe have one of your family members or somebody rent the small house, and there you have space available for them, so they're not in a cramped apartment. I really would like to, and anybody can chime in, I would like to have the rents come down, but I actually have absolutely no idea on how to get that to happen. So talking to people and maybe getting a little bit more involved in government to find out how we can do that. I mean, I'd really like to see that.
Well, and I'll put out a statement and then ask the question. It seems obviously that housing and renting is a foremost issue in our town. With new rentals being right next to Wendy's, down the road next to Haywood's Ice Cream, the old motel. Are there things, and I'll start with Mr. Daniels, are there things that the Board of Selectmen can do to increase the availability of housing? And because ultimately, higher rents is a part and parcel of scarcity. Is there anything we can do? You said there's a 2-acre limit now on housing. Is there anything that the town can do to maybe increase, whether it be individual housing or apartments that may bring down costs?
Okay, and to Ms. Philbrick's comment, she used, I think, 5 acres. That could be split up into 2-acre zoning now. What I would go is a step further and say if you had an acre of land and you wanted to put a tiny house on, just like an accessory dwelling is allowed now over a garage by state law, if you were able to put up a tiny house for a family member, parent or something who is living alone, so that they could be next to family, share the same septic tank, things like that. That takes changes in zoning, and things can happen. The other things that I would look at is see if we can put in policies that would create incentives for businesses, maybe to buy land to establish housing for their employees. And as long as you're an employee there, they may be able to rent out that housing from the company at a lesser price than it is. It's not just the housing, it's the affordable housing.
Exactly.
That's a problem. So it is a tough nut to crack. I know that at the state level, we have poured millions and millions of dollars into loans for affordable housing for people to build them. But you kind of get into this circle where, you know, if rent goes up someplace, so does the price of a house. If a price goes up, then somebody else can charge a higher rent. So I think you need to find some way that you can kind of reverse that and start bringing some of the competition in at the lower level instead of who's on top.
So you've been hearing a couple of these solutions. What are your thoughts?
Well, one of the reasons why rents go up is Milford sits on a monopoly. Compared to other towns, if you live in Hollis or Brookline or Amherst or Mount Vernon, if you want to rent there, there's no housing, there's no rental. They don't build rentals up there. You know, they seem to understand what it means to build rentals and what it costs in property taxes when it reduces everybody's property values. There's a reason why they don't do it. And if a tiny town like Greenville, a property poor town like Greenville, can have a waste treatment plant, then so can a town like Amherst. They can do more to provide more housing, more rental housing. Simply leaving Milford, holding the bag for all these other 13 towns, means that we have the concentrations of supply. So everybody here has a monopoly. So anybody who wants to rent has to come to Milford. They control really the price of rent for the whole area. So if you want to reduce rents, you have to build more rental housing in towns that under RSA 672 are required to do balanced development. And if that's they call it, 5% is balanced development for Amherst, and we want a piece of that action. Because when you're talking about, Mrs. Philbrook said something about they're buying goods and services, and that's true. But $48 as the median household income of renters doesn't leave a lot left to make to buy goods and services, and there's absolutely nothing left to put in the retirement funds. The way you want to get people out of poverty is the way my parents were treated. They had an opportunity. Home ownership. The Hilton Homes project was built for that specific reason, to take people out of the cycle of rents that are too high. They can't save any money for a down payment. It is just a vicious cycle they cannot get out. They'll never make enough money to get out of there. We need more smaller houses, more clustered of home ownership, not rentals. So that's the way, for me, it worked for my family. I think it'll work for a lot of other families.
Okay, Ms. Philbrook? Or Mr., actually, let me just throw this out there to the board, to the people. Is there enough land in the town to do something that Mr. Kimball is, professing? Like, do we have enough land to build both houses and apartments? And or are we able to deny anybody to try to build more apartments in our town? The Board of Selectmen wouldn't be able to do that, right? Or would that go to zoning board first?
Well, it's mainly a zoning issue. And we have two zones, basically. Property that's serviced by sewer and property that's not, and sewer and water. So we have 2 acre minimums for, on their own, without sewer and water, but it's only 15,000 square feet, third of an acre zoning for if you're serviced by sewer and water. So I mean, we could expand it. Right now, maybe half the town, I don't know if that's the right number, but is serviced by sewer and water. The more that we have, the more densely populated we can go on things. I'm personally a big fan of tiny homes, talking about what Gary was talking about. That's very small houses. Typically, they're grouped together on smaller lots, and they're very economical. And for workforce housing, they're terrific.
Where would you see workforce housing? Hitchner's, I mean, Airmar, like larger businesses in the community to supply this sort
I
of
would
thing?
think larger businesses. I mean, there was a restaurant over in Manchester that bought an apartment building and
Use it for employees?
offered that to their employees.
Sort of like the Disney model, where like you have the people on site just kind of
Yeah, I mean, if you leave your employment there, then you also leave your space. But I think we have plenty of land. It just has to be the willingness for people to look and say, if you want to help out a family member, instead of, leaving them with a choice of buying a $400,000 or $500,000 house, if you could take a piece of property that may not be able to be split right now, but change the zoning or give them a waiver that they can place that there, then you've got another home, you've got someone taken care of, it's something that they can afford.
Okay. Ms. Philbrick, you heard Mr. Daniels earlier talk about how the town budget actually has been reduced to single digits versus double digits. You've been the executive assistant for the town administrator. What things with the budget are you happy with? What things in the budget might you want to tweak? And that'll go to everybody, but.
I don't know, I'm happy that we are now almost 100% up to employees, because we've struggled maintaining employees for quite a while. So I think our Public Works Department really struggled over the past couple of years. I don't know if they're 100%, but they're pretty close. Our Police Department, I think we only need one more police officer, and we've been down 5 for a very, very long time. So I'm very happy with that we were able to incorporate that into the budget. In incorporating those things, you have to take some things out, and it makes us have a very, very lean budget, but it's not something that Milford has not had in the past, and they should be able to work within that budget to accomplish the things that they need to for this upcoming year. So I'm glad we have the equipment that we need, the vehicles that we need for the police to do their jobs, for other facilities to do their job. And I working with the town administrator over the past few months, I actually think the budget is a good one, and I think we've done a good job.
Okay, Mr. Dargy, things you like, things that you wish maybe could.
Well, this year, I want to echo what she said. One of our focuses was increasing salaries for people. We've had a real hard time hiring people and keeping them here. People quitting and going someplace else for more money. So we've raised the salary some, and we've been able to hire people. And I think that was very helpful. And there's more to be done. In future years, there'll still be more people getting slotted up a little bit. But I think we did a good job with that in this budget. We've increased our paving in this budget. That's, to me, is an important thing. But we've cut back on a lot of things, and I think it's appropriate. There's nothing that's really terrible in the budget. We didn't slash and burn things. It's in most areas there's a solid base amount of money associated with the different functions. Nothing's extravagant, but it's a good budget.
Mr. Daniels?
Yes, I'll say, just to give you an indication of how good I think the budget is, in my 21 years on the board, I think this is the first year that all the major articles had unanimous support of the board and the budget committee. And probably a major reason why the meeting only lasted an hour and a half. We decided early on that personnel and benefits were going to be the major things, because we're having to compete with some of the larger cities that can offer more pay. So we're trying to find that sweet spot that will keep the people here, because we have a dedicated crew. I mean, we if you take a look at the longevity of the people here, some of them have been here a very long time, and that's the kind of institutional knowledge you don't want just leaving.
And I mean, I know you have more to say, but that also contributes to the stability, you would say, of the town.
Absolutely, absolutely, because we have a new DPW director in. He got together with water utilities director. They came up with a way that they could put in, and they formed a pipe crew. So as they're working on a section of road, they're replacing pipes. Big savings in money in the road infrastructure. We are going to be facing some very big challenges over the next 2 or 3 years. We have water utilities with the $23 million mandate from the EPA that we're going to have to deal with. Fire trucks coming down, it's $700,000-800,000, and this is the mindset that the board got into this year, and understanding that these years were coming where they're going to be challenging. And so that was one of the reasons that we really focused on getting the budget down to, as Ms. Philbrook called it, lean. So that there really isn't a lot of fluff in there, and so that when we go into the next ones, we will get the trust of the people, that they know that we're not out there just frivolously spending their money, but we've made, I'll say one more thing is that I think we've gone to great extent this year to try to make things more transparent.
And just to follow up something like Mr. Kimball was saying about the $30 million ATC, with this water treatment plan, this $23 million water treatment plan, from the, from the deliberative session, that $23 million will being spent will actually save a lot more down the road by fixing it now. Is that correct? Or not?
Some of that was federally mandated.
Yes.
I mean, if we could have got 10, 15 more years out of it, I think we probably would, but.
But apparently, from what they were saying, it was on its last leg. Is that not true, or?
It could all have been fixed. I mean,
It had its issues, but I mean,
Okay.
water utilities also, we're going to be building a new pump station.
Yeah. We
We found out during COVID that we barely had enough water to supply the town because everyone was working from home. We also found out through our state representative, Representative Sheehan, that there was $1 million at the county level that we could go after to put toward that pump station. And we went and explained to them that their whole issue was affordable housing, going back to that. And we had to say, don't look at Milford for more affordable housing. It would not be proper for us to continue to build and not have the water supply to give them when it's needed. And so ultimately, they gave us the $1 million to go put toward the pump station. So
Yeah, I'm going to get to you, Mr. Kimball. Did you want to comment on that?
Yeah, just
Go ahead.
the $24 million for the
Water,
station,
yeah.
roughly half of it, or $12 million, was renovating what was there, and roughly half of it, $12 million, was upgrading it to the new EPA standards. So we were mandated to do the $12 million upgrade, but we needed to do the renovation. It made sense to do them both at the same time.
Okay. Well, good. I'm glad we can clear that up. Mr. Kimball, the budget. And you can also talk about that as well.
I think they did a great job.
Okay.
I think that the board did a great job in cutting it down as best they can. As Mr. Daniel said, we're in a bubble year. So this was the year if you wanted to cut it, because coming down the pike, you're going to see a lot more tax increases because of the spending that's already taken place, or the planned spending on bonds. And so that's why I mentioned the resource allocation, and why it's in our interest as a strategic spending to recommend something that maybe the ATC isn't a good idea right now. That we need to pay our employees more money to attract the best employees we can, give them the tools they need to work with, and just be frugal and be pragmatic and practical. And I think investment is an important thing too. I think investing in getting people to invest in this town to build more affordable housing for ownership, not for rentals, and maybe looking at building something that's good for all of us. And like I said about the Keene situation, we're already going to spend about $15 million on a recreational department over the next 20 years. That's money halfway towards a YMCA and an ice skating rink, same what Keene built. They got some federal funding with it too, but wouldn't that be nice, right? And then attach a multi-building for it, a new library, 21st century library with state-of-the-art computers that'll eventually bring the AI to our government, to cut costs, to cut police patrol hours. That's coming, and we should be in the front line of adopting these new technologies and investing these things, because down the line, they're coming, and we're gonna need to be a part of that. So investing in is just as important as the spending.
And this new fresh vision that you have, when you said in your opening statement, these are things that you would want to bring forward to the board.
Over the period of time, it's obviously, we're gonna have to integrate, it depends on what they spend. If the school spends $30 million, that's off the table. I mean, that's a big chunk of money, a big tax increase. Convincing people to invest money after that is gonna be a tough sell. So a lot of things depend, as all problems, as I mentioned, are all interconnected. So in order to fix one, you have to fix a lot of other little ones. So it's all, you gotta just line up where you wanna be in this town. And that's why I think the board has a role in telling the voters that, this is great, the ATC Center would be great, but it's a want, not a need. What we need is to generate revenue by increasing our investment on things that help everyone out, not just a few people.
Okay, fantastic. Well, and I'll go down to Ms. Philbrook here. So we've been talking about what we want to improve about the town and blah, blah, blah. You've all lived here forever. None of you have really moved and left the town, so you've stayed here for a reason. So what are you most proud of when you think about Milford, the community of Milford? If you were to have a friend come in and say, I've never been here before, what's so great about this town? How would you answer that?
The people. Milford has everything. We have a pool, public pool. We have a lot of things that a lot of the smaller towns don't. And it's not crowded when you go to places. You can go to the library and you're not waiting in line like you would in a big city. I lived in a city all my life, and I was a little nervous moving out of the city when I first got married, and I moved to Mount Vernon, and that was really scary. It was a population 2,000, including the cows. It was a bit much. Milford, we settled in Milford when we decided to buy a house, because at the time I checked all the schools, I checked everything, and I was really extensive on my research, and this was a good community. This has been a great community to raise my kids. My daughter and both sons graduated from the high school and went off to college or in the military, and they're coming back. My daughter is now raising her family in Amherst, but she was further away. She's moving closer. My older son just bought a house down the street from us. The younger son, we'll talk him into coming back too. But, as your kids say, wherever they live, I can't wait to move and go away and never come back. Well, my kids are coming back because they like this town, and they like the people, and all their friends are here. And I just, it's still a small town feel. It is still a place, if I were to have any other kids, which we're not, I'm just saying, any other kids, I would still like to raise them here, because all the services that we need, you don't have to go to Home Depot, you can go to county stores, you can, local, everything here, everything you need is here, and that's why I like this town.
Fantastic. Mr. Dargy.
I like the spirit of community in Milford. Volunteerism is very strong here. We run into people all the time that are involved in civic functions. You interact with people. You don't get that so much in a city. And in smaller towns, they tend to be more isolated. So there's a lot of interaction with people in Milford.
Okay. Mr. Daniels.
I will chime in on the community. And I've said it before, and I'll continue to say it, volunteers are what make this town. A few years ago, well, maybe a decade ago, there was a church that put on a volunteer day, and there were over 1,000 volunteers on the different committees and organizations that are offered in this town. And you really can't have a real good community, tight knit, without that. I mean, everybody comes together. They know each other. It's small enough so it's not a Nashua or Manchester where you don't know your neighbor, and it's just a nice sense of community. From the town perspective, I think I'm also very proud of how the board has evolved over the last 21 years. Going back to the time when I started on the board, we were involved in micromanagement. of things, and we've learned to grow out of that into our place as an executive board, let the town administrator take over the day-to-day operations. We have department heads that we can count on. We don't have to micromanage them, and you instinctively know that things are working. And I mean, we've come to an agreement in town that the town's purpose is to provide customer service. The citizens are our customers. And, looking at it from that perspective, I think we do a pretty good job.
Okay, Mr. Kimball?
Well, I'm a fourth generation Milford resident, and it could be a fifth generation, but we're not sure about one of the names, so I've already reached out to my uncle in the family tree, but I know 5 because my great-grandfather shows up in the obituaries in the Milford cabinet, and he's on the 1944 town report for death registry, and coincidentally enough, there's a guy named Robert Courage, who's a police officer, and getting paid to do some winter cleanup, so thank you, Bob, all right? But I love this town. I grew up here. I grew up as a kid here. I used to fish in the Sauhegan and I'd fight with the kids in Wilton because they were always the other gang. Going to Goss Park. Wilton was like my town away from town. They're almost part of us, part of Milford. But I got to tell you, from what I read, I was shocked because I had no idea this had happened. And when I read that housing assessment report through the eyes of a demographic and economic look, I was shocked at the rapid urbanization of this town over the last 20 years. And most of this urbanization has come through the rental property. I hate to beat this drum. And most of the people are here because, well, they can't find any place they rent in the towns they live. Or they came up on a waiting list. So they're citizens, and I welcome them. I'm glad they're here. But I'd rather have a situation where the people coming here want to stay for multiple generations. Like Mrs. Philbrook said, to have their kids come back and raise their families here. And right now, I think when you have 50% of your, growing up to 50% of your population, effectively here because they've got no other place to go, that doesn't speak of a really tight community to me. We were a lot tighter when we had a better ratio of homeowners. And that was the community I grew up in. When they were close and you knew everybody. I can walk around this town, I can barely know anybody anymore. But that's because of the urbanization. We're a town of 16,000 now, not a town of 6,000 when I grew up in. So, it comes with that. But I love this town, and I see so much promise for it. And she's worth saving. She's worth doing better from. And I think we can do a lot better and focus our resources on things that will make us better. And an answer to one of your questions about what the selectmen can do about rental housing, I believe state law allows them to pass an ordinance to make a moratorium. I think it's only lasts 1 year, but at least it sends a message to the National Regional Housing Commission that we're not going to be a vassal state for them. We're not. And our master plan said we are to resist outside influences, and all we've done is the National Regional Housing Commission's bidding, and they have left everyone off the hook. Now, like I said, either they're right and we're wrong, or we're wrong and they're right. So, or the other way around.
I hear what you're saying.
That was saying. So, like I said, I love Milford, and I want to be a part of her bright future. And that's why I'm running for selectman. I don't have an agenda. If I have an agenda, it's because I want to see this town grow in the right way, for the right reasons.
Okay. So if elected or reelected on the next 2-year term, what would be a project that you would want to focus on? I know you talked a little bit about the unused property, you talked about roads, but is there a project that you would like to put forward outside of that to help, as part of your tenure?
Well, I mean, my biggest focus will be on that Brock's property, but
What do you hope happens with the Brock's property?
I hope we can bring in some industrial and commercial revenue. Get a big company or a couple of big companies to buy the property. Not all of it, because it's, we have a plan, and some of it's for the town and stuff. But just to bring in some additional revenue. But we also have a great bunch of employees who go after grants. And we go after grants all the time. Our new water utilities director goes after every single grant he can find. And I'd like to see the other, most of our departments go after grants here and there, but I'd like to see more grants come into the town, because the more grants, the more things that, you can do, and that also helps to offset the taxes, so.
Okay. Mr. Dargy, a pet project you might have?
There's going to be a CMAQ grant process going up. That was the funding for the sidewalk that we lost out on was a CMAQ grant. I'd like to apply for the next round for something. I'm not sure what it would be, but
What would the CMAQ grants give you the opportunity to get money for? Obviously, sidewalks was one, but does it encompass other things too, or?
it's mostly road-related things.
Okay.
Transportation, that kind of thing. Sidewalks was a perfect thing. I mean, it's right in their sweet spot. I'd like to tear down the building down at Keys Field. We've been resistant to doing that. And I'd like to move forward with that overall project of renovating Keys Field over the years. Step one is tearing down that building.
Would that be an area, like Mr. Kimball was saying, you could put an ice skating rink, or is that someplace totally separate?
An ice skating rink is not part of the plan as of right now, but we developed a whole plan for the site.
Oh, okay.
And there's a building anticipated for that.
Was there a senior center, is that?
Senior center in a gym combination, right next to the pool.
Yep.
But, it still could change. I mean, but step one is getting rid of that building. So then, once we do that, we turn it into parking. We never have enough parking because there's a handful of events each year that really need extra parking, swim meets, that kind of thing. So we should get rid of that building. I'd like to do some EV charging stations. We talked about doing one on South Street.
Where the gas station was
Gas station was
pulled
torn
down?
Yeah.
Fantastic. Mr. Daniels?
Yes, I would agree. I'd like to see something happen out on Brox where we could turn that into industrial. The other part out on Brox I'd like to see it get going, and we've been working on it now for 2 or 3 years, is the gravel operation. I mean, it got halted. Hopefully that we'll get it back into operation this year. It's one of the goals that the board had that we didn't get finished this year. One of the things that I think that is important that we have been working on, and I don't know that we're going to finish before this term is up, is to review the policies we have that go back to 2000. We've been able to eliminate some of them because they are no longer applicable. There's others that we're putting in, things like right to know, that provide transparency, social media policies, things like that. So we're down to probably about 6 or 7 of them left now that are going to take a fair amount of discussion to put into place. But those are instrumental in making sure that the board and the town have a process by which to do things, whether it's procurement or something else. The other big thing that I would like to see is I would like to pursue partnerships with the school and find ways that we can combine the initiatives on those and maybe save some money for both entities.
Just as a follow-up, you brought up transparency a couple times now. Are you happy with the transparency that's going on with the Board of Selectmen at this point?
I am more happy than when we started out. I think we've gone a long way. We have brought in people to train us on the right to know laws. So when we run a meeting now, I think we have a better understanding of what needs to go into the meeting, go in and out of non-public, how you seal minutes. It's probably mundane stuff to the normal person, but for the individual out there who's trying to follow a paper trail to find out what it is that the board is doing and why it's doing that, these things I think become very important in transparency so that they can understand and say, oh, okay, I understand now what that motion was or why they're doing it this way.
Awesome, fantastic.
I think we still have more to go, though.
Okay, Thank you.
pick up on some of the
Please.
things that they said. The EV charging station is great, but what the problem was, as Mr. Field brought up in one of the planning board meetings, was that the conduit. I mean, you're going to have to run a lot of power. So I was reading this Wall Street Journal, and they have a company now using telephone poles because the power is already there, and using telephone poles to hook up a charging station. So we could literally add more charging stations all over the town rather than just focusing on one place. Because then people got to come down, and charge there, and they may live up on a Woodhawk or something. But if there's a charging station attached to a telephone pole up where they live, it's more convenient to them, and it's revenue there too. The Bronx property, one of the reoccurring problems of the Bronx property is we don't have the infrastructure going out there. We don't have the sewer, we don't have the power, we don't have the water. And if you want to attract businesses, and there was once a Warren article, I believe was it $2 million or $2.5 million, and it got voted down. Well, this talks about, if people knew that a company was going to go in there, we're building it to attract this Amazon warehouse, for instance, I think they'd be on board for that, because targeted investment with a payoff right in front of you, they need to connect those dots. Simply saying we're going to build the infrastructure and let the wind blow wherever it goes, they're not going to pay for that. So I agree. We should be developing part of the Bronx property, and I think there's a part of that we can use to put some of the mini housing that Mr. Feynman once mentioned in one of the planning board meetings or one of the selectmen's meetings. I think it's a good idea. I think, I can't reiterate enough that home ownership is the way for people to get out of poverty and to build an estate. So even if they couldn't save enough money to their retirement, they still got a house that's paid off. And let's see.
That's where you grow generational wealth.
Right, and it's great. We got apartments, right? We got half the population almost in apartments in town, generating about 48,000. It's not a lot of. When it comes to buildings, single-family homes produce the highest amount of the economic multiplier. Then it goes detached condos and connected condos.
Duplexes and so on.
The lowest is rental properties. And this report out of the University of Michigan Extension said that it does produce economic multiplier, but their taxes are different than ours. They tax that as a commercial property at a totally different rate. It's a quirk in the New Hampshire tax system that every property is taxed at the same rate. And because they can take depreciation, it begins to become imbalanced over time. And we have to have environmental concerns about the Bronx property. On that property are endangered species, and we are lucky to have them. And we should have a nice balance between them. We don't want to destroy the habitat that they need to survive, just to make a few dollars. Because once it's gone, they're gone. So I believe the Bronx property is a place to grow, not just industrial, but workforce housing and ownership rates. So again, the $30 million focused investment.
I have to ask you, the ice skating you're proposing, thoughts of where you might want to put that?
Well, first of all, I agree, Mr. Darjay. If we had to take that building down to put the YMCA, for instance, which the Keene built, and right next to it is an ice skating rink, and you have plenty of room down there. In fact, once you build the YMCA and put 2 indoor pools in there, the third pool, the outdoor pool, we can retire. It's 60 years old or something, and we have to continue to put money in to repair it. It's time to retire that pool. And that's where there's that land opened up right there. There's plenty of room to grow down there. There's plenty of room for that center. But that's all depends on how we spend our money today. And we already, as we said, got a lot of bills coming down the road. And if that $30 million ATC gets passed, that won't come for decades. And it's a shame, too, because that would give everybody in the town something to hold on to and be a positive revenue driver after the bond gets paid off. We could probably pay that off early. And for me, I see, we do a lot of good things, and volunteerism is very good. I mean, this town couldn't run without it. But volunteers are not all choosing the same rate, all right? When you have, for instance, the ethics committee, when you have the team, it's like 2 teams playing in a championship game, right? And that before they meet on the field, one team gets to pick who the players on the other team is. So this is a reason why I think we can make policy changes in the special boards, commissions, and committees to bring in another neutral panel to try to produce a distance between the people that they're going to be judging and the people that appoint them to their positions. Now, legally, they will be required to appoint certain people, but it doesn't mean this independent panel can't recommend these people. I'm just trying to increase the integrity of the town without scaring away volunteers either.
Okay, fantastic. I did tell you I'd try to keep it around an hour, and we were in that spot. Are there things that we haven't discussed that you would like to maybe bring up at this point? This would be the appropriate time for that, and I'll actually start here and go down. Is there any things that we haven't talked about that you would like to address?
Yes, the empty storefronts.
Okay.
They are all over this town. And it is a byproduct of the development of this town. It's a byproduct of the Amazon effect. And so in some ways, we might need to repurpose those. We may never get the retail business back from them. So we may repurpose those into affordable housing. Change half of that Lawrence Plaza into a place where you can have people, tiny homes. How many homes could we put in there? It's subject to retail zone, but that zoning can change. If we really want to do something in this town, they can get it done. So for me, attracting businesses will require us to increase the median family income in this town. Nobody's going to start a business in here when they're not going to be able to sell anything. We can't have a bike store anymore because nobody can afford to buy a bike. So a lot of the stores that have left here is because their customer base dried up. And that's an effect of development.
So you're struggling with the storefront issue?
Oh, well, yeah, and it's everywhere too. And it's really dead weight. I mean, we're still getting taxes, but we're not getting the economic multipliers. We're not driving increased taxes and revenue by bringing people here.
And as a just to follow up, is there any way, if you were on the board, that you could try to improve or promote bringing people in?
Well, we're in a deep hole, all right? When you have all the other towns have 5% to 10% rental rates, and we're at 43 going to 50, that's a pretty significant hole. As I said, either they're right and we're wrong, or we're wrong and they're right. So we're going to have to stop what we're doing now. We've got to stop digging the hole we're in now. And the only way to do that is, I think, the only tool we have is a moratorium.
Okay, fantastic. Mr. Daniels?
Yes, I'd like to go back. I accentuated the experience that I've had at multiple levels of government before, and the need to be able to look for solutions that are outside of the box. And I'd just like to reiterate over the years some of the things that I've been able to accomplish. Working with Executive Councilor Wheeler to acquire grants to dredge Osgood Pond, $300,000. I offered a suggestion that enabled the town to buy automotive fuel through a program called WEX, where they could buy it lower than what was on the economy, or if we normally get it from the state. If the state was lower, you could get it there. But it ended up saving tens of thousands of dollars by just going into that program. I worked and succeeded in acquiring funding for a new district court in the Department of Motor Vehicle up by Market Basket. That would be open full-time. Prior to that, it was open 2 or 3 days a week. I worked to keep the Milford DMV in Milford because during the time that they were building that court, the state plan was, we're going to send the people from Milford to Nashua to register their cars. Well, I found a gentleman who owned, or who bought had bought the administrative building that Hitchener used to have. And he had a small business there. He renovated that, moved DMV over to that building, and we were able to stay in Milford and register our cars without having to go to Nashua. It helped him because he had a customer. When the court was built and DMV was back in business, they moved out and went over. And finally, years ago, those who have been in town for a while might remember the initiative that Kinder Morgan tried pushing on us as a pipeline in eminent domain taking. And I fought for that, for the private property rights of people, because it would provide nothing for us.
And if I can follow up with you, do you think your experience at the state level also allows you to benefit at the local level because of the advantages and opportunities you can see that are available at the state level in terms of grants and programs like that, that you can bring back to Milford from Concord?
Yeah, I've always actually felt that the two work together. I've held them concurrently for a number of years, but at the state level, I was always conscious that what I'm voting on up there, how is that going to affect the local community? And you know, I still have a lot of colleagues that I know that are still up there that we can talk to, and again, you know, I'll bring up Representative Sheehan's name again. Through the county, she was able to get $800,000 grant for the library HVAC. It's those types of things I think that we need to be aggressively go after, and again, find ways to get things done that isn't just the status quo.
Fantastic. Mr. Dargy, is there anything?
I just want to circle back a little bit.
Sure.
We talked about the ATC proposal on the school side. It's not really a town issue, it's a school thing, but I'm strongly in favor of that. It's a really good proposal. It gets $28 million of state funding. I'm always an advocate for getting state funding or federal funding. And if we can get that and use it for a good project, then we should go for it.
Okay. And just to loop back and do a follow-up with you as well, Mr. Kimball had talked about having some form of influence on to the school side. You've served on the school board as well. So do you feel that being on the school board and as a state representative, you have a unique perspective as to the full gambit as well in the town?
Oh, absolutely. Especially on the schools. I used to be the facilities guy on the school board. That was my thing for a long time. So I'm really intimately knowledgeable about everything. And that project proposal is great. I mean, it's just the right size. The original thing they looked at was $100 million, and that was too much. And they tried to cut it back to the minimum required to get the minimum, or to get the state funding, but that was too small. This project adds ATC, but it also upgrades science things at the same time. And it makes sense to do them both at the same time because they work together. And the infrastructure in the building makes sense to do that.
Fantastic. Okay. Ms. Philbrook, anything you'd like to add that we haven't brought up? No. Okay. Well, then I'll follow up with you as well then. You talked about in your opening about, good leadership and so on the board. Coming into the board, if you are to be selected as on the board, what type of leadership role do you think you would bring? I mean, you've been involved. I'll flex on you for a little bit. You've been the executive assistant. You've been on a zillion committees. You know what grants are. Are these things that you'll be able to pull in to the Board of Selectmen and thrive with that background of yours?
Yeah, well, I'm not going to promise something I can't deliver, but I am going to promise to do what I think is best for Milford. So if I can work on grants and I can work on, other things like that, then that'll be my focus.
But these are things that you've had some good
that-
back experience with.
Yeah, and you're right. I've been on more committees than I can count, and every one of them is special, and I've learned something from all of them. So you learn something, and most of the committees they're made up of volunteers, and if we didn't have those volunteers, then we would have nothing. So.
But with all those committees, you've also have a unique perspective because obviously all those committees have their own slants and their own desires and wants and needs in this town, and you've been able to encompass a lot of that.
There are people out there that have some great ideas. We need to get them to come forward and listen to their ideas, because it's a board of 5, but it's a town of 16,000, and we need to be open to what's out there.
Fantastic. Okay, well, at this point then, I'd like to do our closings. I started with you. You have a choice.
I'll go.
All right, so then we'll go this way and boom.
So I'm running alongside 3 other candidates for 2 selectman positions. Our community has a difficult choice between qualified candidates who all want the best for Milford. I believe my background and skill sets have prepared me to be a successful contributing team member and I'll bring a good balance to I feel I'll bring a good balance to the board. I bring a unique perspective because I've worked with community development over the past few years, and I understand the needs and wants of the town. I'll listen and communicate with respect. I'm honest and direct, and I work hard for what I believe in. There'll always be people who know less than I do, and there'll always be people that know more than I do. So the question is, do I care enough? And am I willing to do more caring and more listening? And the answer is yes. So it would be my honor to serve as a selectman for the town of Milford.
Thank you. Mr. Dargy.
Okay, thank you. In summary, I'm simply a long-time involved citizen that tries to guide Milford to make the best possible decisions that address the concerns of all the various stakeholders in town. Increased taxes are a major burden for many, and they need to always be considered and to be avoided if possible. On the other hand, there's valuable interests that need to be funded to make Milford the special place that it is. It's a difficult dance to effectively make those cost-benefit trade-offs. I believe that I've done a decent job over the years by choosing to support courses of action that are fiscally prudent while also moving us forward to the future. It's easy to always just say no to everything, but that is often not the right option. The Board of Selectmen were relatively fiscally conservative this year, but I believe that this was the proper course of action for us to keep the tax increase to a minimum for this year. Affordability of choices needs to be assessed every year, and maybe some years we're more aggressive on things and other years we cut back. This year was a cutback. I thank everyone for attending this forum tonight, and thank you for voting on March 12th.
Thank you. Mr. Daniels.
Thank you, and thank you, Dave, for moderating this evening. For the next few years, selectmen will be challenged to find ways to provide needed services while balancing the need of the ability of the taxpayers to support the cost of these services. With 33 years of public service at multiple levels of government, I've discovered that times of hardship also create times of opportunity. We need to focus not on the hardships, but on the opportunities and how we can utilize these opportunities to create policies that make Milford and its economic environment stronger, more cohesive, and financially less burdensome for Milford taxpayers. I have and will continue to use this experience to seek ways for state, county, and local government to work together for the benefit of all Milford residents. Over my years of public service, I have met many wonderful people, listened to their stories, ideas, and concerns, and represented them in various elected offices. I again present myself to you as a candidate with extensive, well-rounded leadership and legislative experience, a voting record of consistent fiscal conservativeness at the state, county, and local level, and a solid 33-year record of honesty, integrity, and commitment in public service. It would be my honor to continue my service to you as one of your selectmen, and therefore I ask you to vote on March 12th.
Thank you. Mr. Kimball.
Well, this is the first time I've ever run for office, and I'm obviously the outsider. I'm running against three longtime members of the board and town administration, and I think I can bring a different perspective. I think I bring a fresh perspective. They've done a lot of great work, but you know, if Milford was a company, right, and we were all shareholders in that company, and if that company was losing money and losing market share to its competitors, and your stock kept falling, is re-enlisting and re-electing and reappointing the same management and expecting different results a good choice? So I appreciate all their skills and the work they've done, but I can't escape the fact that Milford has been in a steady economic decline over the last 20 years. We have boarded up shops. Half the population now, half the households now can be categorized as the working poor. And I don't see us getting out of this, continuing down the same road that we've gone. We need a fresh direction. We need a hard stop and a change in trajectory. And thank you, and I hope you vote on March 12th.
Awesome. I want to thank all four candidates that came out tonight for our selectmen's conversation. there's no question you have 4 fantastic people vying for 2 seats. March 12th, from 6 in the morning to 8 o'clock at night at the Milford High School Gymnasium is where you can vote. You've heard a number of great ideas, a number of great visions. So I know if you're watching it live now, it gives you opportunity to evaluate. If you're watching it as a rerun, it also gives you opportunity to hear firsthand what their visions are. I will always say I give great credit to anybody who's willing to jump into the public forum of our community. As many of the candidates said, it's that volunteerism which makes our town what it is. So I want to thank everybody here for giving 90 minutes of their time to come down to the Board of Selectmen's office to have this conversation. I want to thank you, the viewers who are watching on Granite Town Media, and please don't forget, 6 o'clock in the morning till 8 o'clock at night at the Milford High School Library. Next week, or next Wednesday, I'm sorry, we'll be also having a school board forum hosted by Mr. Steve Martin. That also will be on the ballot on March 12th. Thank you very much from Granite Town Media. We want to thank our candidates and thank our audience. Take care. Hey.